it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. LaBita.tv. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Wednesday, May 8th. How is everyone doing? And thank you for watching the Sick Podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And of course, during the playoffs, we pre-record most of the shows before the games, and that is what we are doing tonight. Last night was a big night and I would say the history of the National Hockey League, because there's one NHL draft lottery, right? I just wish the NHL would pump it up a lot more than they do. It's actually probably going to be one of the things I'm going to talk about with our regular collaborator on Wednesday nights, which is Craig Button, a director of hockey scouting and hockey analyst, of course, with TSN, which we'll get to Craig any minute now. Not before we talk to you, of course, about our partners and our sponsors. And we start with Energy Transportation Group, but we don't end there. They are a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. And every year they come up as the top transport employer to work for in the country. I know the owners personally, dear friends of mine, Mike Chiquino and Sean Gerard and David Grassi, and they do an awesome job. Energy, that is a place where you can definitely build a career. I can tell you that right now. Also brought to you in part by LaBita.tv. A special hello to Aldo Geloso, Ted Ferracci and Company, brewed in Quebec, a winner of a dozen international awards. LaBita.tv offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. LaBita.tv, embrace your true nature, brewed in Laval at the Geloso Beverage Group, of course. Also, Playground, and we want to thank them as well. And I can tell you that you can step into the excitement of Playground with the Mystery High Hand promotion every day starting at 10 a.m. You have a chance to win a share of over $120,000 in cash prizes available until May 31st, whether you play from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily or join the late night action from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. from Sunday to Thursday. You could win up to $25,000. For more details, visit playground.ca. Don't miss out. Swing by Playground and get in on the winnings. And last but not least, Accent Insurance Solutions. The website is accentassurance.com, because you know that all insurance isn't created equal, and you know that where to find the right solution for you. It's Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop it for you to find the right product right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business. Call the Accent team at 363-3636 and get the right solution at the right price. Without further ado, let's bring him in once again from TSN. Craig Button, how are you?
I am great, Tony. How are you doing?
Very good. Michigan, eh? Michigan.
I'm a Michigan man.
Good for you.
We won the National Football Championship this year. I don't know if I lived in Ann Arbor for 12 years.
I was going to ask you what the connection was.
Yeah, it was. My girls were born there. We lived just what was called the Old West Side. We literally lived half a mile from the stadium, and there was lots going on in the Michigan area at that time. The basketball team, the Fab Five. The Pistons were great. Michigan won a national championship in 1997 in football. The hockey team won. The Red Wings ended up winning. There was lots of winning going on in that area of the country from the late 80s to right through to 2000 when I left. But it was a phenomenal place to live, and awesome. Lots of affinity for my Wolverines.
Good for you. I want to talk to you about the draft lottery, which took place, of course, last night. I've been pretty outspoken about, I love this game. Obviously I do. I put food on the table because of it, because if there's no hockey, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I find the National Hockey League, I'm just going to say it, I find they're very old fashioned. I find they're very behind other leagues. I'm going to give you an example. The All-Star games, they're getting a little bit better. They're starting to bring in the Justin Biebers of this world and the Michael Bublé's of this world, and they make them captains, and they're starting to figure out what the young generation likes and who they listen to and who they watch and what they'll do to tune in. You saw what an impact that Taylor Swift had on the National Football League, of course, but that's because she's dating Travis Kelce. It wasn't anything the NFL did on their own. But I will tell you this, when the NFL has combines, and Agnello and Sammy have gone to their combines, it's unbelievable, the combines, right? The amount of podcasters, radio people, TV people that are there, that are, talking about it, tweeting about it, Instagramming about it, posting about it. All-Star Weekend, I find National Hockey League, you don't really have that many All-Star parties. The skills competitions are, some of them are better than others, but over the last couple of years, they tried to improve it now this past year. I thought it was kind of bland. There's not much of a build-up, not very exciting. The who's who of anyone in the world usually is not there. And now I want to fast forward to the NHL draft lottery that took place last night, Craig. It was only a couple of days ago that we actually found out what time the draft lottery would be televised. And watching the draft lottery last night that started at 6:30 and ended, maybe a couple of minutes after 7 o'clock or right before then, because it had to end right before the hockey game started. I had the feeling that the whole thing was so rushed. I had the feeling that the whole thing was so non-dramatic. I mean, Bill Daly was popping up those cards 16-1. I think he did it in like 16 seconds. I mean, they may have gone to commercial once or twice, but it was all so sped up. There was no drama. There was no flair. I think they can make this a pretty big event, a pretty big happening. I think they can make the NHL draft lottery better. I think they can make the NHL draft better. I think they can make All-Star Weekend better. I think they can make opening night better. Do you agree with me or not?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? As you try to progress, and hockey's got what I would call more conservative roots, and so you're trying to break, you're trying to move forward, and at the same time, there's a lot of I don't want to say resistance, because that's not the right word, but there's a lot of loyalty to oh, well, this is the way we've always done things. I will be like, I've been in the board of governors meetings. I've been in the general managers meetings. In my view, there's a lot, and it's true of any push for progress. There's always going to be a pull away from trying to progress, right? And there's going to be a group of people or a faction of people that are like, oh no, we can't do that. We can't do that. And
they're called dinosaurs, Craig.
Yeah, Luddites, dinosaurs. You're right, and so it becomes a little bit more difficult to take these steps, and then you become a little bit more careful in how you take those steps, because you could do 8 things right, a 9th thing might be okay, and the 10th thing might be not so good, and the people that are trying to hold back progress, they focus in on the 10th thing that didn't go right instead of what we're doing. Like, you think about. Just think about on the ice. Like, so when we think about on the ice, and we think about, the players, and we think about, how they celebrate and what they do. Like, I don't know if you recall this. Well, I do know you recall it. Alexander Ovechkin scored that spectacular goal against, at that time, the Phoenix Coyotes. Remember, he fell, he came, and he swept the puck in, right? And then later on that year, he scored, and he was saying his stick is hot. I was doing work at the NHL Network. I said, the outrage, there was outrage across the NHL. There was, how can you do this? So I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay. I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to show all the different celebrations from players. Mike Foligno jumped up after every single goal. Tiger Williams rode his stick up the ice. Ty Domi rode his stick. Bernie Nichols, the pumpernickel, and I showed all this, and then what I got? What I got from some people that were working. What are you trying to do? I said, what I'm trying to do is point out that, what, people have celebrated, but all of a sudden it's Ovechkin and we want to jump on him. And to me, the flyby with remember when the flyby came by? Oh, the Michigan, that's disrespectful to the game. I hear so many things about disrespectful to the game. Give me a break. It's garbage. And so to me, when you talk about trying to have progress, and I think the key thing is trying to understand what the young players are doing today, and what are their interests, pop culture, what are their interests in the world, what are their interests in hockey, how have they been taught, how have they been coached. And what ends up happening is that you hear about everything from before. We hear so much about what was. Let's deal with what is. And the bottom line is the game changes, society changes, and you got to change with it to be able to make significant progress in all areas.
So years ago, the draft lottery, the rules were modified so that teams that would, intentionally try to tank would not be given the number 1 pick overall. So to try to discourage tanking, you could still finish last overall and not get the first pick. Take a look at Chicago last year with Connor Bedard. They are not the team that had the worst record in hockey. I believe they had the 3rd worst record in hockey, but yet they won the draft. This year, if you take a look at the way the draft lottery went, I mean, nobody moved up or down. I mean, everyone ended up getting where they were supposed to, where they finished in the regular season. Is there anything that you would do to modify the draft lottery any more than what it is?
So the draft lottery has had a number of different iterations. And again, we get scenarios where, okay, we don't, no professional sports league wants a situation where teams are tanking, so-called tanking. Professional sports is about winning. It's about trying to be successful. Consider now that we've introduced a whole lot of betting into the sports. So it's never good to have teams purposely tanking. Like think about betting. So you think about, I'm going to purposely tank, and there's lots of rules around betting, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look to be purposely tanking. And you're right. When the Buffalo Sabres in 2015 and the 14-15 season, their fans were cheering losses. Their fans were cheering when a team got a go-ahead goal. Like, something's wrong there. Something's wrong there, Tony. It's not right. And I think that, when you think about, okay, you can't win the lottery. You can't win a lottery more than 2 times in a 5-year period. That's the current rule. You used to be able to move up all the way. Now you can't move up more than 10 spots. So there's been modifications to it. And I'm one that says, okay, let's deal with the issues. Let's make sure that these make some sense. And I think there's lots of sensible things that have been put into place that take away, that don't encourage tanking, because you can tank and then all of a sudden you're not getting what you thought you were going to get as a reward. I think that's positive. I think making sure that you reward your bottom teams with the best chances and not rewarding a team that finished 13th below that can jump all the way up to the first pick. I know the odds are, but they don't allow for it anymore. So I'm not looking to make changes for it. I'm looking to evaluate to see how it's unfolding. And I like where it's at right now. I agree with your point at the outset. Like, you're trying to sell the future. I know we have the NHL playoffs going on and everything. My idea is, end of the regular season, 16 teams are out. The day between the end of the NHL regular season and the beginning of the playoffs, we have the draft lottery. Boom. And the other thing I don't like about where the draft lottery is that teams.
Pardon me. Come again. Right after the season.
Yeah, the day after the season ends.
After the season ends.
Day after, everybody knows the day after, boom, we're having the draft lottery this night. This is what we're doing. And you lead it into the playoffs, whatever it is.
Yeah,
now,
and you don't have to rush it into 30 minutes because you're on a night off.
You can do whatever you like, however you want to do it.
It could be a 3-hour telecast.
Yeah, well, however you want to do it. And anyway, but also, like, the draft lottery was on May 7th. Essentially the scouting season is over. And, teams are looking to where they could pick. And I go back to the draft with Nolan Patrick. The Philadelphia Flyers moved from 12 to 2. They were not even looking at players in the group from like 1 to 5. And now all of a sudden they got to give the teams more of an opportunity to know where they're going to be picking. And then understand that, like, okay, that gives them a chance to zero in on their picks and to be confident that, like, okay, we're picking 11th. Let's just zero in on this group of players. I think it's ridiculous that after the U18's completed, essentially the CHL playoffs are down to 6 teams, that now you determine where everybody's finally picking. I think it's ridiculous.
It's an interesting point that you make. And also I like the fact that the earlier you know when you're picking, the more time you have to prepare leading up to the draft, because the draft, of course, is going to be on Friday, June 28th and Saturday, June 29th. It's going to take place at the Sphere in Vegas. What I think they're doing is they're just trying to spread everything out. So like they're always picking one night where there's maybe a little bit of interest. And there's going to be that week, of course, where there's going to be the combine in Buffalo. By the way, do you usually go to that? I would imagine you do, right?
I've gone in the past. I find now that it's like you just talked about the NFL combine that Anello and Sammy have gone to. The access that people have, you know, to NHL, to NFL personnel, to the players and everything. To me, the players come in, that they have all these interviews with the teams, they're running around, they're 15-minute interviews. It's like date lunch. It's like lunch dating. You know, that when they used to have the 30-minute lunch dating. Like really, you're going to spend 15 or 20 minutes with a player, and you're calling that an interview? I think it's another joke. You know, to put these kids running around the arena. Okay, they're going from here to here to here to there, right? So there's no access to the players. The players are worn out. Then I'm going to go watch players lift weights. Like honestly, my interest in it now is over. It's over. And just for the record, I'm not going. I don't want to be there.
It's North American mentality. People think the guy who can do more chin-ups is the guy who's going to be the better hockey player. You know what I mean? That's true, though, right?
Like, guess what? The NFL Combine is big and everything, right? And I've seen the whole wow this, wow that. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was in the draft. That was 2011, and he was in there, and I think he did one bench press.
He went first, right? He went first.
Yeah, and he was going first, no matter if he did 21 bench presses or one bench press. But you know, Colin Wilson was tearing up the combine. Oh, do you see what Colin Wilson has done? Look at this, look at that. Yeah, he was a BU. He was stronger. He was bigger. And I remember saddling up to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I said, "Yeah, that bench press is going to really help you be a good NHL player." I said, he kind of looks at me. I said, "Well, if you want to be cross-checking all the time, that's what bench presses will help you do with." And he kind of gave me this little smile and a little thing like, "It doesn't matter."
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the lottery selection and where the 16 teams, the other 16 who, of course, participated in the playoffs to start the first round, and the teams that are left, we don't know where they're going to be selecting, but we do know the top 16 teams. Let's bring up the graphic if we can. All right, so number 1, the Sharks. Number 2, the Blackhawks. Number 3, the Ducks. Number 4, the Blue Jackets. 5, Canadiens. 6, Utah. 7, Senators. 8, Kraken. 9, Flames. 10, Devils. 11, Sabres. 12, Flyers. Wild are 13. The Sharks from Pittsburgh are 14. The Red Wings are 15, and the Blues are 16. Let's go back to where the Canadiens pick is, number 5. All right. Based on the draft percentages, there was a higher percentage. The highest percentage the Canadiens would pick was at the number 6 spot. And so they're actually pretty happy with number 5. Kent Hughes was asked about whether or not he's superstitious when it comes to these drafts, and if he watches them, if he's got a lucky charm on him. Let's hear from him.
Not super superstitious, to be perfectly honest. I think there are probably others in the organization that are more than I am. But certainly when you're watching, this is the third time through now for me doing it. And you know, you had a chance to draft Connor Bedard if you won last year, and Macklin Celebrini. So they're franchise altering hockey players. You obviously hope to win. But you know, the reality is the percentages of the lottery are such that the most likely outcome, I think, is that we pick 6. So in that regard, you know, we've had good luck with the lottery. When we finished last and were due to pick first, we did, and the other 2 we picked where we were set based on the end of the season standings.
It's true. It's 3 years as GM of the Montreal Canadiens. They finished with the worst record in hockey, 5th worst record in hockey, 5th worst record in hockey. They got the number 1 pick overall, the number 5 pick overall, and the number 5 pick overall. Macklin Celebrini. Kent Hughes was just saying, if you get Macklin Celebrini, like he can change the fate of your franchise for a long, long time. Mike Greer has already come out and said Macklin Celebrini is going to be our guy. How much can he do going forward for the San Jose Sharks? And based on the prospects they have, how close are they or not from accelerating their rebuild?
Well, obviously, when you're rebuilding, you want to get players that can make an impact, and I don't think there's any question that Macklin Celebrini will do exactly that. Just quickly back to Kent too. Kent's son played at BU, so Kent has outside knowledge and inside knowledge about how good this kid is, and he knows very well that Macklin Celebrini can be a massive difference maker, and he will be a difference. He's been a difference maker wherever he's played, and that's not going to change when he goes to the San Jose Sharks. And you draft Will Smith last year at 4th overall, and you draft Macklin Celebrini now this year at 1st overall. I love how the likely first pick. Like, stop with the likely BS. He's the 1st overall pick. There's nobody else that's going to be picked 1st overall. And Mike Greer said, that's the guy we're taking. Let's be likely. Give me a break, likely first pick. He's the 1st pick. He's the best player. Now, when you have Will Smith and you have Macklin Celebrini in back-to-back years, what you're looking at now, Tony, is you're looking at pillar pieces up the middle of the ice, pillar offensive players up the middle of the ice. Will was the leading scorer in the NCAA this year. Macklin was the 3rd leading scorer in the NCAA. Macklin won the Hobey Baker. You look at their qualities, absolutely, you can look now to the future of the San Jose Sharks and go, we have foundational pieces at critical positions in our organization to move forward. And does that mean they're going to move forward next year? No, they're not. The Sidney Crosby came into the NHL. I mean, just like unbelievable 100 points. They were the 2nd worst team in the league, or the 3rd second worst team in the league. So, like, do I question their individual ability to come in the league and produce? No. But for the team still is still a ways away. Connor Bedard had a really good year in Chicago this year, but every night their team got beat up. Every night their team got slaughtered. And San Jose is not moving away from that anytime soon. But now you can look and go, okay, we have these players. There's some other really good prospects, certainly that are in the fold that you can start to. I mean, they have William Eklund, who played this year, is a really good competitor. Quentin Mesty, who they drafted in the second pick in the 1st round last year. You have Kasper Haltinen, who's playing great with the London Knights. They have a whole group of offensive forwards that are big and skilled, and so they're moving right in the right direction. But make no mistake about it, there's a huge difference between having the 1st pick in this draft and the 2nd pick in this draft.
All right. So on that note, Kent Hughes was asked about, okay, Celebrini is going to go number 1. From picks 2 to 10, is there a huge separation? And he answered that question that was asked by Eric Engels. Let's listen to his answer.
Would like me to answer this for the other 31 teams in the National Hockey League?
No, just for your own opinion.
I think some of the questions are just difficult to answer, Eric. Right? I don't think that at this stage in the process, I'm not trying to be difficult, but at this stage in the process, it's difficult for us to say too much. I'm happy. Like, there's no question in my mind. There's a lot of good hockey players in this draft. In the top 10, there's going to be some very, very good hockey players, both forwards and D. To say that we've identified one player that we think, I think it's fair to say Macklin Celebrini is the one player that's separated himself from the group. But beyond that, to say that there's somebody that I know is going to be available at 5 that has separated himself from everybody else, I can't say that right now.
Would you agree with that Macklin Celebrini right now is alone on an island? And after that, the 2nd is not that much better than the 4th or 5th?
Or the 11th or 12th or 15th, maybe.
Really, yeah?
Well, I mean, I understand exactly what Kent is saying. I can guarantee you this. There's 32 teams in the NHL, and their top 10 lists are all different. Every single one is different. There will not be one that's exactly the same. There just won't be. It's impossible. Like, there just won't be. It can't be. Everybody looks at it differently. Everybody looks at players. Now, to Kent's point, there's lots of good players here. And depending on what you're looking for and what you're evaluating and what you think your franchise needs, and I've said this many a times. I said it when I was working in the NHL. I say it now. You get a crack at one player, and right now, Montreal Canadiens have no idea who they're picking. They have a group of players they're looking at. They have no idea who they're picking. No idea who they're picking. And they're not going to know exactly who they're picking until it comes up to because they don't know who the three guys are going to be picked ahead of them. Yeah. So you have to look at a group of players. You have to be flexible in your thinking. You have to know, okay, this is the guy we really like, but if he's not there, who's our next guy that we really like? And when you drafting, you got to really like the player. Celebrate the player you want. Don't worry about anybody else's thinking. Don't worry about what anybody else is saying about your player. You got to put a stake in the ground. Celebrate the player you're taking. I don't know if I told you this.
So Craig, if I can put together a list. Yeah, sure.
I just want to finish my thought.
Yeah, sure.
Last year, so I watched David Reinbacher lots, and I thought he was an Adam Larson type player, and maybe a little bit more offense, maybe not as physical as Adam Larson, but that's okay. So I got asked, and you heard all the like the uproar from the after they drafted David Reinbacher. I got asked about David Reinbacher, and I said, listen, here's what I think he is. Obviously, the Montreal Canadiens really like him. They said, well, you didn't have him rated as high. And I said, who says I'm right? And like, who says I'm right? It's just because I looked at it that way doesn't mean I'm right. And here's the problem. Here's the problem. Too many people think they're right. NHL personnel think they're right. Oh, how could they draft that guy? I remember a number of years ago, a team came to me after the Calgary Flames drafted Mark Jankowski in the first round. Yeah, there was a gap between it was on the next day, and they're like, "Can you believe they drafted Mark Jankowski?" I said, "Yeah, they liked him." And they go, "Oh God, that's a reach." And then that team took a player early in the second round. I wanted to go right over to that table and go, "I can't believe you just took that guy." Yeah. So NHL teams criticize, outside, draft groups criticize. That's just the nature of the business. That's just what happens. Yeah. But who said who? You know what? We're going to know who's right and who's wrong in about 4 or 5 years. That's who's right and who's wrong.
I have a funny analogy for you, and a funny comparable for you. And I always think about this when I think about the NHL draft. Okay. Like you said, you'll find out who's right and who's wrong in about 4 or 5 years. I compare it to something else where you'll find out who's right at the end of the year. It's a hockey pool. Everyone's involved in a hockey pool. They get together. You pick out of a hat. You end up having the snake kind of draft, right? So if you're 10 players, the one guy gets picked number 1, but the guy who gets 10 ends up getting 11 as well. And then it comes back all the way around. And the guy who got 1 will get 20 and 21. And it's a snake kind of draft, right? Once you pick your player, your player's gone, right? Well, usually, there's always a bunch of people in these drafts, and somebody takes your player, and oh man, I wanted him, I had him there. Good pick. That's a great pick. And then some people are like, they take another player, and you're like, oh my God, bad pick. Everyone has an opinion, but at the end of the day, you're only going to know at the end of the year if the guy actually made a good pick or a bad pick. That's what it is.
And it's a good analogy, and it's why I say to NHL teams, know what you want to get, celebrate who you picked, and move on. Don't listen to the outside noise.
Now, is an NHL draft list the same way I would prepare for my hockey pool, since we're talking about it? You put together a list, and you respect the order of your list. And if your top player is available, that's the guy that you draft.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting together a list, you're putting together evaluations, and you're trying to narrow down to legitimate players you think are going to be in your area where you're drafting, so that you can really narrow in. Like nobody, and I say this all the time, same thing with last year. Like if I'm Macklin Celebrini's agent, the only team that's meeting with Macklin Celebrini are the San Jose Sharks. You can schedule an interview with him at the Combine. You're not meeting him. It's a waste of his time. And I don't care what you want to achieve. We're not going to be accommodating to you. But you're going to try to look, and you're going to try to say, okay, what players do we want to meet? Like, these players are in our group, these other players are not in our group. We go to the second round and everything. You're always trying to pick a group of players, and just because you and it might be a group. Let's just say it's a group of 3 players, 2 forwards and 1 defenseman, or 2 defensemen, and you're kind of going, okay, who's there? Who do we like? What would we do if all 3 are there? What would we do if there's only 2 there? And it might not even be that, like, you have the defenseman ahead of the forward, because one of the defensemen might be gone, and now you're debating between a forward and a defenseman. I'll give you an example. I did a mock draft last night, and here's how I set it up. I said, I'm the manager and the director of player personnel for all the teams. I don't care what people think should happen. I don't care what might happen. I don't care what other people are writing. This is what I would do, and here's why. So Chicago's picking 2, and their debate is going to be over a defenseman and Demidov, in my view. It's going to be Demidov and a defenseman. So do you want Demidov, who I think is the second best player in the draft, but that doesn't mean that you automatically take him over the defenseman. You look at what the Chicago Blackhawks have. Do they want Demidov to pair up with Bedard? Do they want a defenseman that can bolster their blue line? And at the same time, Tony, they got to be looking at other picks and other parts of the draft. I mentioned this about Montreal back in the year they drafted Slafkovsky. That was in 2022. And, they're looking at Slafkovsky. They're looking at Shane Wright. They're looking at Logan Cooley. I mean, I think Kent Hughes did say they were down to 3 guys. So I'm not bringing anybody into it. We didn't know that they were going to trade for Kirby Dach. We didn't know, and they didn't know, that they were going to draft Owen Beck with the first pick in the second round. All of a sudden now, you watch how that unfolds. The big, strong winger in Slafkovsky. They get Dach, and the minute they traded for Dach, I'm going, well, this makes total sense, not drafted Shane Wright. And then they get Owen Beck, a right shot center, and I go, now it makes even more sense not to draft Shane Wright. And it doesn't mean they were wrong. It just was really sensible for the Montreal Canadiens to take the course that they did. And that's where I say, understand what you want to do, understand what players bring, and then move along your course and celebrate it.
All right. Speaking of the Montreal Canadiens, to have a better idea of who they're going to draft, it would be nice to know if they want to take a forward or they want to take a defenseman. So Kent Hughes last night after the NHL draft lottery was asked just that.
What I've said is all things equal, we would draft a forward, and I think that remains the case. As far as having the opportunity to sit down with our scouts, which we're going to do next week, will really kind of solidify, exactly where they see the group of players that are available. So difficult for me to answer that question in advance of sitting down with the group in terms of telling you, hey, it's absolutely a forward versus a D. But, I would stand firm with all things equal. That's what we would do.
Perfect. So let's go back to the chart, which shows where the Montreal Canadiens are picking, and they're picking at 5. All right. So once again, Sharks, Macklin Celebrini is going to San Jose. The Blackhawks you mentioned are going to hesitate between Demidov or a defenseman. If Demidov is not taken by Chicago and Chicago takes a D, in your opinion, which D would Chicago take?
Okay, so which one would they take? I mean, I could make a case for any 6 defensemen. I could make a case. So when Kent says all things being equal, so we can go to Silyev, Levshunov, Boyum, Dickinson, Perek, and Yakimchuk. I could make a case for any one of those defensemen to go to, any one of them. I am confident that those 6 defensemen are probably going to go maybe in the top 10, maybe in the top 10, 11, 12. I don't know. And I'll be straightforward with you. I have no idea what order they're going in. No idea whatsoever. But I do know this. When he uses the term, everything being equal, you got a right shot dynamic defenseman in Perek. You got a really good offensive defenseman right shot in Yakimchuk. You got a well-rounded defenseman in Levshunov, who might not be as offensively as gifted as those guys, but has a really good, strong two-way game. You got Sam Dickinson, who just plays big minutes, plays important minutes. You have Silyev. I don't know if he's got the offense, but that those types of defensemen are so good. They got Boyum, who's just he can play left defense, right defense, great skater. I think it all comes down to what do you value? What do you want? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to have a list. I can put them in order, and I can tell you one order today, another order tomorrow, another order the next day. That's where Kent talks about all things being equal. Then you factor in forwards. And then the other thing that Kent may not have expounded on, I didn't hear the whole interview, but it's also all things being equal with, is there a defenseman that could fit into our group that we don't have that type of defenseman? And now that becomes all things being equal. Like, so now we lean towards a forward because we're looking at some forwards that could really, really bolster our forward group in a different way. So all things being equal are not just about the draft or not just about who you're picking at 5. Like I said, if Carter Yakimchuk goes 2, I'm not going to sit there and go, where'd that come from?
Okay.
I'll totally understand why he goes 2.
All right. So if you were Chicago, who would you pick?
Well, I said in the mock draft I would take Levshunov just because of the defenseman. But upon further reflection, I would take Demidov.
Wow. Okay. So let's just say Demidov goes to Chicago. You're Anaheim. You have at the forward position Mason McTavish, Leo Carlson, Trevor Zegras, Cutter Gauthier. List goes on and on. Carlson, McTavish, and Zegras are listed as centermen, but all depends on who you ask. Because a lot of people think that when it's all said and done, Trevor Zegras will not play center, and maybe McTavish won't either. For you, are they all centermen? Because, and I'm asking this because I'm really trying to figure out this whole thing with Caden Lindstrom, of course, to see where he's going to be a fit and where he's not going to be a fit. So, if Anaheim's up and Macklin Celebrini goes 1 to San Jose and Demidov goes 2 to Chicago, and Anaheim's deciding on a forward or a defenseman, do they rule out Caden Lindstrom because they have centermen? Or in your opinion, they're centermen, 2 of which are probably wingers?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're probably wingers. I will say this. This is why when I did my mock draft, I don't care what other teams are doing. I don't care. I'm zeroing in on the Ducks. I'm zeroing in as if I'm the manager and I'm the director of scouting. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm Pat Verbeek and Martin Madden Jr., and I'm zeroing in on what we need. I do not think they have a dynamic defenseman there that can support that offensive group. So I'm totally going on a defenseman.
Correct.
That's where I'm at. And that's why, that's why. And so is it Lashunov? Is it Boyum? I personally believe that Z Boyum's the best defenseman in the draft. Now, does that mean I'm right? No, but that is my belief. And that's where I sit today. We'll find out in time, like, who ends up being the best. But if they take Levshunov or they take Siliev or they take Dickinson, I'm not going to sit there and go, boy, that was a bad pick. Bottom line is, I just said it. Nobody would surprise me going at that. But they do not have a defenseman in their system that's a top pair defenseman. I'm talking about a young top pair defenseman. And to me, that's how you build your team. I'm looking at it through the lens of if I'm the manager, director of scouting for the Ducks, I'm taking a defenseman.
What do the Columbus Blue Jackets
there? Then I might change my thinking.
What do the Columbus Blue Jackets need?
Well, the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think again, they need a really good defenseman. They have a lot of good young forwards. I know Det Matejchuk was named the Defenseman of the Year in the Western Hockey League. They drafted David Jiricek a couple years ago. They have a lot of good forwards. They drafted Fantilli last year. They have Kent Johnson. They have Cole Sillinger. Zach Werenski to me is a top defenseman. He's a really, really good defenseman. To me, I'd be looking at a big guy like Siliev. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference. I'm looking at big defensemen who can skate. I think about Det Matejchuk, who I have, and I'm looking and going, well, geez, Siliev would be a nice little fit there. A guy that can play those big minutes, stretch things out, and go from there. That's where I'm at. I think Fantilli's a centerman. I think that, you start to look at where they're at. But I could make a case for them to take a center as well. I could make a case for them to take Caden Lindstrom. No question.
I'm going to end up asking you this question, I know, again, before the NHL draft, but I'll ask it right now on Wednesday, May 8th, at pick number 5, knowing what we know right now, today, on May 8th. Should the Montreal Canadiens pick at 5 or trade the pick for probably immediate help, or do something that rarely happens, actually trade the pick to try and move up in the draft? Is there anyone worth moving up in the draft that probably another team would be willing to trade for a package. I don't think that makes sense for the Canadiens. Do you?
Well, maybe Demidov. Like it's
Okay.
I'm going to jump on Kent's comments that everything being equal, I think Demidov is a dynamic wing. I think that he's a dynamic forward that can score. I think he's better than Michkov. I think he's a better player than Michkov. And we know all the discussion last year on Michkov, and did the Montreal Canadiens, that would be like, if it's anybody else, no, there's nobody else I'd be looking to consider trading that for. But if there's a crack at Demidov and the price is reasonable, I'm in.
What would it take?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, you got to understand that sometimes teams ask for the earth, the moon, and the stars, and it just becomes easy, like, to say no. You're gonna flip your fifth pick, and for a team to do it, they're just moving back a couple of spots to move to 5, and then after that, is it a prospect? Is it a second round pick? I don't think it's significant, but sometimes you'd be amazed, Tony, what teams may ask for because they think they can get it, and it just becomes simply like, not a chance. No.
Here's Kent Hughes yesterday on asked if he's going to trade to move up.
The first year we had the first overall pick, so we couldn't move up. I didn't get any calls to trade it, but I had stated that I'd always be open to entertaining ideas, as long as we thought it was better for the organization. Last year, we were at 5. We called teams called us. I don't think the inquiries in terms of moving up in the draft were limited to people trying to get our pick at 5, because I called around too. So, I expect that I'll get calls, and I'll probably make calls, just so that I think that's just something that you do in terms of your due diligence. As far as the realistic possibility that somebody moves the pick, whether it be us or somebody above us, hard to say, really hard to say, because I don't know, your question. I don't know the answer to that question with respect to other teams. Like, if they feel that the degree of separation between 2 or 3 or 4 and 7 is insignificant, then I'm sure they would look at it. And if they feel otherwise, they probably won't move.
All right, there you have it. There's Kent Hughes. So we'll end it with this.
Let me share a quick story with you. I
do.
was in Calgary. We were picking 9th, and I got a call from Rick Dudley. He goes, "What will it take for you to trade your 9th pick?" And I remember saying, "Geez, I don't know, Rick. Let me talk to our group." So I put down the phone. I was surprised by the call. First of all, I was surprised by the call. So I sat down with our group, and they're going, "Well, who do you think he wants?" I said, I don't know, but he seems to really want the 9th pick. And so we sat down, and I phoned Rick back, and I said, he goes, "Well, we'll give you the 10th pick and our pick in the 4th round, I believe." So I said, "Well, let me talk to our guys." And I talked to him, and they said, so he had 2 picks in the 4th round. And I said, "Well, we'd like this pick." Phone him back. He said, "Done." So to Kent's point, the reason I bring that up is, to Kent's point, you don't know how other teams look at a player. That happened to me 2 years in a row, because the year before, Cliff Fletcher had phoned me. He was with Arizona, and they wanted to move from 14 to 11. And we're sitting there going, "Okay, who do they want? Are we going to get the group of guys that we want?" And we looked at it and go, "Well, we have a group of guys here." And back to the group of guys, things being equal. And we made the trade, got a 2nd round pick, a higher 2nd round pick. And then we ended up taking a player that Chuck Kovacs, was the guy we took. But you never know what other teams are looking at in terms of trying to move up. But to Kent's point, it's about, how do other teams value? You don't know. And so I don't think it's about Kent doing his due diligence. It's about Kent understanding what opportunities are out there. What opportunities are out there for me to move ahead? What opportunities are there for me to potentially get an extra pick or a different type of player into my prospect group? That's the job of the manager. And you never know what call is going to come through. I just gave you 2 examples that surprised me.
But it's probably a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And I'm going to ask it respectfully. Why would your staff care about who he was looking at or who he was going to pick? You guys have to focus on yourselves, do you not?
Well, we did, but I think it was just a general question. It was like, like there's obviously somebody he really likes to make that call.
And the reason why I asked, Craig, is because let's just say you guys are looking at a player, and if you're thinking that Dudley's going to take that player you're looking at, you're not going to make that deal. But if you think Dudley's looking at another player, you'll say, yeah, let's make it. We end up getting a 4th round pick. We're going to get our guy anyway. Right?
Well, but it's not a guy. That's why I say in the vast majority of cases, you're looking at a group of players. They're all in a grouping. They're all in a grouping. This whole idea that there's one guy. Yeah, there's one guy when it's Macklin Celebrini. And you know, you go McDavid, then the next guy is Eichel. It becomes very clear who that as you get to pick 9 and pick 5 and pick 14, there's a group of players. And it was just they didn't care. Trust me, they didn't care. It was just a curiosity thing.
Yeah, got it.
There's obviously a player there he really likes, and was it somebody that we were missing? Was it? I think you're just asking like for your own group. But anyway, you never know. And I was just trying to dovetail on what Kent was saying, and that to me is making sure you know what opportunities exist out there.
So we'll end with this. I think we all believe that in the top 4, at least one defenseman will go. Right? Yeah. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So at that point, if one defenseman goes, I'm going to ask you for your 4th ranked forward in the draft. And if 2 defensemen go, I'm going to ask you for your 3rd round forward. So your 3rd best forward. So the Canadiens are going to draft the forward, and they're either going to take the 3rd forward on your list or the 4th forward on your list because you're the one who's going to be drafting here. You're the general manager. So give me 2 names, not one, because one can be gone here. Give me 2 names, not named Celebrini and not named Demidov.
So I'll give you 2 names.
Yeah.
Consta Helenius and TJ Ginla, Caden Lidstrom.
That's 3.
I know, but I gave you 3.
Okay. And in which order?
I'm not so sure that there's a clear separation between those guys. I think they're different types of players. But those are the 3 players that I look at and think like those are, like in my view, really, really good players.
I know that Caden Lindstrom is ranked better on everyone's list compared to Ginla. I'm sure he's going to be a good hockey player, and if the Canadiens get him, great. And I can understand wanting to draft a 6'3", 6'4" centerman. It gives you all kinds of possibilities with your team after, and you could even move Kirby Dach to the wing if you wanted to. I say this. If the consolation prize ends up being TJ Ginla, I would be one very happy man.
I will share a quick story with you as we finish up here.
Yeah.
In 1995, we drafted Jerome Ginla 11th overall in Dallas. And here's our assessment of Jerome Ginla. We thought he was a really good power forward, scored 30 to 35 goals. That was that's how we projected him. Well, let me tell you this. We were wrong. And we projected him to be a very good player. We were wrong. He was way better than we projected him to be, as he proved, right? Back to your analogy about a pool. He became way better than we thought. And you know what I keep doing with TJ Ginla? I keep watching him. I go, am I going to make the same mistake and underestimate Tej? Tej, I will give you a little teaser, will be in my top 5 in my final rankings.
Good for you, Craig. You want to know why? Because a wise man once said, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. On that note, you have a great night. Take care of yourself. Thanks. All right. I love this guy, Craig Button of TSN. Special thanks to Energy Transportation Group. Special thanks to Labita TV. Special thanks to Playground. And special thanks to Accent Insurance Solutions. Special thanks to all of you watching, you, my sick army, you, my sick community, and for everyone listening, watching. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. For Shane Gaumont and Master Control, I'm Marinaro, and the wise words of Peter from Côte St. Luc, double shift your best players. Hello, Peter. I hope you're doing well. Have a good night, everyone.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tv. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.